The president came up with a budget to show how he'd like to spend your money. And the competition for the chance to run against him continues to offer surprises. This is the Citizenlink Report. Hi, I'm Stuart Shepard along with Tom Minnery, our Executive Director. Hi, Tom.
Hello, Stuart.
We've all been hearing about this whole budget thing, but what's interesting about it is the president has done what members of Congress, the Democrats in Congress, in the Senate in particular, have failed to do, and that is he's at least produced a budget.
Well, he did. It was later than law requires, but he produced a budget this year. But the astonishing thing is, it's not a serious document. Nobody is taking it seriously. And there's so much political news these days, people have just blown by this budget presenting the president's spending plan for the year 2012. I'd like to talk about that because it's very instructive.
Okay, well, tell us how to get a good idea of what this is about and how it fits in.
Well, first, let's talk about the deficit. And the deficit is the amount of spending done by the government in excess of the amount of money taken in by the government.
So if we were comparing it to our home finances, it would be the difference between our take-home pay and what we spend above that goes on a credit card.
That's exactly it. It's that unpaid balance that keeps collecting interest, and that's just what the deficit is doing in an amazing way. Let me talk about how this looks on a chart, and I want you to pay a little bit of attention to this chart and the next one because it really tells an amazing story. I'll take a moment to explain what this is. Now, across the bottom of this graph are the years starting with 2000, the start of the Bush administration, all the way through 2012, which will be the end of the president's first term. Now, the blue line, the one at the top, represents outlays. That's how much the government spends year by year. The line at the bottom, the red line, is the receipts, the tax receipts, how much the government brings in. Now, the vertical axis, the upright line to the left, represents the percent of something called gross domestic product. That is the percent of all the value of everything the economy produces, which is sucked up by government.
In a sense, it's the total take-home pay for the entire nation. It's everything that we produce.
That's the value of everything we produce. And the government now is sucking that up at about 24%. You see outlays peaking here at about 25%, and in 10, 11, and 12, hanging in there about 24%. Now, in order to understand what that means, the last time the government took up that much of the private economy was back during World War II. It's been a long time since we've seen anything at that high level.
Yeah.
Now, the difference between that red line at the bottom and the blue line at the top is the deficit. That's the excess of spending beyond tax receipts. Is moving away from us. You can see we're getting into a very, very serious problem. There is some good news as the president presented it, and that is this. You can see, look at the right edge of this graph, the blue line at the top, it trends down. Yeah. That's good news. Spending is coming down. Not only that, but the bottom line, receipts, is trending up. So at the right edge of the red line, it trends up. Tax receipts will rise. At the right edge of the blue line, spending is going down.
I have to point something out. I used to be a weather forecaster, and as I look at that, I realize that's not historical data, that's projecting into the future data, right?
Well, it is. It is. Now, the problem also is that in order to cut the spending and get it going in a good direction, that, as shown on the right edge of the blue line, the president has got to increase massively income taxes. That is, have the rich pay their fair share.
As he puts it.
Well, that's right. Now, I should say that the rich are already paying a lot of taxes. The top 3% of income earners in our country pay as much in tax dollars as do the bottom 97%. So the pile of money coming in from the top 3 equals the pile of money coming in from the bottom 97%. They're taxed pretty highly, not nearly high enough to get this blue line to turn down on the right edge as the president projects. Now, He also projects tax receipts going up. Well, that assumes the economy is going to boom this next year at about twice the rate that is probably going to boom in this next year. And with those massive taxes, even if he gets it, and he will not get those tax increases, even if he did, that would dampen the economy. So this red line is not going to trend upward. It's more likely to go down.
Which is an interesting point you're making there, and that is so often those who work on tax policy act as if it will have no impact on the decisions people make about their businesses, about how many people they employ, about how much they attempt to do. So to project an increase in taxes and an increase in the economy really doesn't make sense in the real world. It only makes sense on paper.
Well, particularly that spending, you're right, particularly that spending, getting the blue line to trend down, that involves massive defense spending cuts. Nobody on either side of the aisle in Washington thinks those will happen. That is why this is not a serious document. The reality is, there's another simple graph that shows us the worsening amount of money we continue to borrow and continue to pile up, and that's another chart called the debt boom. This is a chart that shows the astonishing increase in the debt that we are not paying off year by year as a percentage of the gross domestic product. This chart shows that by the end of 2012, we will be holding debt that is about 77% of everything that the country produces in a single year. Economists say that when you get to about 90%, you cannot go back. You just continue on, and you eventually wind up where Greece is. So this is not a pretty picture, and it's not a serious budget, according to the many critics on both sides of the aisle that have seen this budget and probably have put it aside already. So it's not a good situation. And so the first 4 years, the president has not made good on his promise to cut the deficit by half. It just continues to grow, and so does the debt.
And it's going to take some serious decision making. It's also going to take the American people saying we're willing and we're mature enough to realize that this is going to take a real change in how federal government functions to turn these numbers around.
Well, it is, and these are going to be harsh decisions that have to be made. So the administration that takes over, if the president does not prevail in the elections, will have some very difficult decisions to make in order to get a budget that really does these things that the president has begun talking about but doesn't seem to have the will to accomplish.
All right, let's turn the corner real quickly here for the last part of the program. We want to talk about what's happening in the presidential primary. We have, at least some polls are showing, at least for some period of time, a new leader in this race, something completely unexpected by most everyone.
It's just an amazing race. Senator Rick Santorum now is beginning to emerge as the leader, as you say. Why is that happening? I'm not really sure, but this is what I think. He is a man of conviction. He is very strong, enunciating some views that are quite unpopular in the media. He can talk about the importance of religion and how religion plays itself out into public policy. And it's just fascinating. Now, a couple of weeks ago, President Obama can quote New Testament passages by means of making the case that the government should take more tax money in order to help the poor.
Right.
Okay? A yawn from the press. Rick Santorum can talk about Scripture as enunciating the sanctity of human life, therefore abortion is an evil, and those things stemming from abortion are evil, and it's a big controversy. So it's not the religion as such, it is the way one applies that. And Rick Santorum continues to talk about the most difficult set of subjects, the social issues, in a way that politicians seldom are able to do that. For example, one of the Sunday talk shows recently, he was talking to Bob Schieffer, and they were talking about, of all things, amniocentesis, that test of fluid in a pregnant woman which can detect genetic abnormalities, Down syndrome, other genetic problems, and amniocentesis sometimes, very frequently, leads to abortions. And Bob Schieffer was not sure he was buying all of this, and Rick Santorum said, yeah, that's why I'm not so sure that all of these procedures, which the Obamacare plan requires that insurance companies pay for, is a good thing, because it leads to abortions of children with genetic difficulties. And so Bob Schieffer says, you think then that the president is discriminatory against children who are mentally challenged, or something like that. Rick Santorum did not let that go. He said, well, as a matter of fact, when he was a senator in Illinois, Barack Obama stood for late-term abortions, and late-term abortions are predominantly used to get rid of children just like that. So what he was saying, you can characterize it what you want, as you will. I'm saying there's a problem here. That is a man of conviction who is able to enunciate his convictions very articulately. I think people are rising to someone who holds convictions, stays with them, even though they may not themselves hold it. I think that's what's happening here, but who knows? So it's just a fascinating season.
One thing we know for sure is whomever has run out to the front of the pack has instantly started having rocks thrown at him or her.
Yeah,
so that's going to be happening in the media over the next week or so. We'll be keeping an eye on that. Tom, thank you for your insights. Thank you for helping us understand all this and keep track of this. And thank you for watching. We always appreciate hearing from you. You may write to us at mail@citizenlink.com. Send us your comments, your questions, your criticisms. We read every note that comes in. We don't get to answer all of them, but we do read every single one that gets to us. Remember, stand tall and be heard.